Hey guys, guess who I have in the house? I have author, environmentalist, activist, eco-philosopher Derrick Jensen right here.
Guys need to know,
with us today
should they be
to
shaving?
answer your questions
It's sexier
and
and it's
mine.
Our
So welcome,
lawnmower
Derrick. Thank you so
3.0,
much
it
for
is the
joining
best
us
trimmer
today.
in the... Oh, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Anytime. You know how much I love having you on. You're one of my biggest influences in my philosophy. I just resonate with how you think. So excited to have this conversation with you today and to answer other people's questions. But let's just start out with the elephant in the room, the coronavirus, and how it's affected the ecology, the biosphere. Do you think it's a net positive or a net negative, the effect that the shutdowns and all that have had on the environment?
Well, before we start, I have to say that I'll be coughing some, but don't worry because it's the side effect of some medicine I've been taking for like a year. So,
But you've been isolating for a while, right? You don't get out much, right?
well, I'm a writer, so I've been isolating for the last 40 years.
All right. Me too. I mean, not 40 years, but at least the last
Anyway,
4 months.
I have a dry cough because of something else. So that's all.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay. Good to know.
as the actual, I'm glad you asked whether you asked this not does the pandemic itself having an effect on the natural world, but rather on the shutdown having an effect, because I don't see the pandemic itself as having much of an effect on the natural world. We can get into that or not if you want, but the shutdown, absolutely. And anybody who knows anything about my work knows that pretty much anything that slows down the industrial economy. I mean, the industrial economy consists of converting the living planet into dead materials, and GNP is just a measure of how quickly that's being done. So slowing the GNP is by definition better for the natural world. Yeah, it's very interesting. Decades ago now, I was sharing the stage with Ward Churchill somewhere, and we were just chatting backstage. And one of the comments I happened to make was, "Can you believe how stupid the Germans were as they were committing the Holocaust to keep the meticulous records that they did?" And he just gave me this look and said, "Derrick, what do you think GNP is? It's a measure. It's a very meticulous record keeping of how quickly the world's being murdered." So slowing down the global industrial economy, of course, is a good thing.
Okay, well, I so agree with that. There are some unintended consequences that I didn't perceive happening. For one, what's happening in South Africa and all the people that are suddenly unemployed have to go into the wildlands and fend for themselves and possibly causing more destruction there. And then there's like in the U.S., in my own county, because we didn't have full lockdown, they're allowing people to go into the national parks. And just this weekend, everybody went into the national parks. There was lines of traffic going into the national parks, and all the restrooms are closed. All the garbage facilities are closed. They're expected to haul out their own feces and all that. And do you think that's going to happen? And I mean, I am just disgusted with what humans are doing. They don't care about the lockdown. They're not abiding by it, and they may cause some more unintended damage. I mean, intentional damage. I mean, garbage everywhere and all that. What do you make of that?
I think that, I think all the time about something that my dear friend John Osborne always says, that he's been an environmental activist he was my environmental mentor. So he's been an environmental activist since early 80s. Anyway, whenever I ask him why he's doing the work he does, he always says, as things become increasingly chaotic, I want to make sure that some doors remain open. And what he means by that is if bull trout are still around in 10 years, they may still be around in 100, but if they're gone in 10 years, they're gone forever. And that's usually what I focus on when I talk about that statement he says. But right in this moment, I just want to focus on as things become increasingly chaotic. And things will become increasingly chaotic as empire collapses, as civilization collapses. That's what happens at the end of empire and at the end of civilization. This is not.
We expected that part, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so far as the actual harm done by people in this collapse, there was somebody made the argument to me the other day that that we need to maintain civilization precisely because as civilization collapses, more and more people will eat like bushmeat. More and more people will
Yes.
the animals near them. And that's kind of an absurd argument because right now they are killing creatures in the middle of the ocean. And with civilization collapsing, they won't be able to kill those they can't reach. And really, for the longest time, and this is a measure of how bad I think this whole culture is, and how irredeemable and how unwilling to care about the natural world, that basically 12, 13 years ago, I realized that what I'm really interested in doing is reducing this culture's reach so that at least it can't reach in and kill creatures in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, I'm fully with you. Yeah.
And I think honestly, in many ways, the best we can. And also, I guess what I want to come down to also is no matter the circumstances, what we need to do is we need to find the wild places and wild species we love, and we need to defend them. And that's true whether the industrial economy is running at 100% or whether it's running at 60%. And also we both are from, or all three of us, I guess, are presumably have lived parts of our lives in the rural West. And we know the sort of nature hating that is evident in a lot of the rural West. And I mean, I grew up in Colorado, and I lived for a while in northeastern Nevada and then in North Idaho. And if you recall, or if you know, northeastern Nevada, a not infrequent phrase is the 3 S's, which are shoot, shovel, and shut up. And that's what you're supposed to do if you see an endangered species.
And wild horses too. They don't like wild horses there.
They don't like wild anything.
Yeah.
They probably would hate wild bluebirds if bluebirds got in the way of their cows.
Right. Wild tortoises, anything like that. I do have a super chat. Sorry, so I have to interject. One of your biggest fans sent me a super chat. So I'm sorry, I have to break in just for a second. And this is a Q&A. So yeah, I'm a Sweet Leaf, huge fan of yours. Using my COVID relief money to support you, my YouTube people for like-minded. Thank you. Stay strong. Huge fan of DJ. Yeah, really. You have a lot of fans here, just so you know. But thank you. I'm a Sweet Leaf. Anyone else who wants to make a comment? Here's another one on Jim Dore. I'm starting to venture forth since I started this YouTube journey of talkers. Thank you. I'm a Sweet Leaf. And okay, I'm a Sweet Leaf. Very big talk. Hello, you both, and thank you. Yeah, and what the natural progressive says. Thank you. I'm a Sweet Leaf. Oh, Vegematic's here too. And he says, I get the best guess. So nice. Thank you for using your COVID money for that. I try to support people with my COVID money. I'm trying to catch all the comments. It's really hard. But we did come here to hear Derrick. So if you have any questions for him, here's one. Veg says a little towards your, thank you. Okay, you guys, I really want questions for Derrick. But if you guys aren't going to ask him, I will. I mean, I appreciate the support. Thank you so much, Veg. So much. Veg is a big fan and also one of my peeps in here. Hi, T-Star Galaxy. And hi, Val. Let's see. I have more questions, really. So how do you think this is going to turn out for the biosphere? Do you think do you think it's going to be like good? I mean, everything is collapsing. All the reefs are collapsing and all that. And I know the Western world causes the most damage. So that being in shutdown is super positive, right? I mean, the less industrialized nations don't cause as much damage. And I'm trying to parse this out in my own brain. And we're spectators to this. We have no control over it as much as we'd like to. And as much action as we can take, yeah, please do it. I believe in doing it. But how much control do we really have? And how much damage has already been done?
Well, obviously, a lot of damage has already been done. The passenger pigeons are gone. Yeah. But there are species who are not gone. And as long as they exist, we need to fight for them. And as long as there exists, one pair, we need to still fight for whomever it is. And because there is a chance that they can come through. And I keep coming back to the same thing, which is I think one of the most important things that we can do is to, and anybody can do this, is to protect whatever wild nature that we see and we're near. You can do this in the middle of a city. You can, at this point especially, there are still coyotes in a lot of cities, and you can still help them. You can still, if you're in wild nature at all, you can still help. The big thing is we need to bring down civilization. I always say this, that if you look at this from the perspective of blue whales or coho salmon or Pacific lampreys, it's all pretty clear what needs to happen. And that's the important thing. So many indigenous people have said to me, the first and most important thing we have to do is to decolonize our hearts and minds. And part of what that means to me is to break our loyalty with the system and to put our loyalty to the natural world. And once you do that, everything changes. And then, if you're the sort who likes doing larger scale activities, you can work to stop timber sales, you can do all that. And if you're not, and that's incredibly important to do, but if you're not, there are still, I know people who turn their backyards into insect havens. And that's a very important thing for those particular insects. And, I've never forgotten something that, and this is not sufficient, but I've never forgotten something that I was brought to do a talk by, I think they're called the Buckeye Forest Council. And they're a forest protection group in Ohio. And as they were, after the event, as they were driving me to my next stop, they were telling me this story about how they had stopped these timber sales year after year, and the head of that local forest service, or the head of the local national forest, said to them, we're going to overwhelm you at some point, and we're going to get this. We're going to get it all cut down, and your work will have been useless. And the guy responded, you may very well be able to push this past and get it cut at some point. But in the meantime, there's going to be several generations of snails, of butterflies, of amphibians who have no idea that you and your chainsaws exist. And it's not sufficient to make it so only a few generations live out their harried lives before they get exterminated, but it's something. And again, the real key is to make your loyalty with the natural world and not with the dominant culture.
I agree. And this is a perfect segue, actually, to get into the Gail Zawacki comment that she made on a video where you were mentioned. Do you mind if I read it? And I want you to be able to respond to it, because I want you to stand up for yourself, because, I respect you a lot. So if it's okay, I'll just read her comment. I wish I could put it up, but I couldn't copy and paste it. I'm technically illiterate. So, okay, Gail Zawacki, this notion that a collapse of modern civilization will benefit the environment is based on ignorance of human evolution and prehistory, or to put it another way, it's based on a romantic, nostalgic fantasy that hunter-gatherers were in harmony and balance with nature. This just isn't true. Humans have always exploited resources to the extent they could until some disaster occurred or natural constraint was reached. This is why we migrated out of habitable climates into hostile territory. We chopped down huge forests with fire and stone axes to facilitate hunting eons before agriculture was developed. We drove dozens of megafaunal species to extinction in every biome we invaded. When modern technology is no longer available, whether from economic collapse due to debt or pandemic or peak oil, humans will still be able to destroy other species and habitat, especially considering how many more of us there are now. And that fish at the deepest part of the sea, what an astonishingly stupid thing for a supposed ecologist to say everything is connected. The forms of life closer to the shore and the surface are vital to the depths. Geez, I'm sorry. That was just hostile a little bit, but I wanted you to have the ability to respond to that because several people who watch that show watch my show and may have seen that comment.
And there's absolutely no reason for you to apologize. I get this bullshit all the time, and anybody who cares more for the natural world than for this way of life is absolutely used to it. It's just absurd. First off, right here where I live, the Tolowa lived here for 12,500 years. I'm not saying they were perfect, but they lived here at least 12,500 years. And when the dominant culture arrived, the place was a paradise. And in the last 180 years, it's been trashed. That's first thing. Second thing is, so if humans are inherently destructive, which she seems to be arguing, then that doesn't change any of my arguments because we still need to protect. If you care about the natural world, then you protect the natural world from these. I think it's inherently destructive culture. She thinks it's inherently destructive species. It doesn't matter. If you care about the natural world, you still protect them. It doesn't matter. And
I tend to agree because I'm kind of, I'm on the side of the biosphere. I'm on the side of the natural world. So
this reminds me of a story. And I wrote about this in Endgame. I mean, that's part of the thing that's stupid is that it doesn't matter if I deal with these arguments because people actually don't respond to arguments. People don't change their mind because of arguments. People continue to spew their nonsense, even if you rebut their arguments. Anyway, one of the things that I say in Endgame is I tell a story about a guy I taught at prison who got really sick of somebody else complaining about how much he hated black people. And the other prisoner was saying, God, I hate them, I hate them, I hate them. And the guy got sick of him saying how horrible black people are. So he went over to part of the yard, dug up a shank, put it in the guy's hand and said, here, either do something or shut up. And the point is, if she thinks that humans are inherently destructive, and if she cares about the natural world, which I don't believe she does, but if she does care about the natural world, then why isn't she working to eradicate humans? Because I'm working to eradicate the culture because I want the culture to stop killing the planet. So if she truly, truly believes humans are inherently destructive, she should be trying to wipe out humans.
Agreed. Thank you.
Okay, so the next thing is for her to say that it's ecologically stupid of me to say, yes, I want for there to be fish protected, at least at the bottom of the ocean. That's really stupid. And the reason that's really stupid is because fish at the bottom of the oceans actually did survive previous mass extinctions because they live on detritus.
That's true.
And it's like through the mass extinctions, traditionally, it's not true in this one because we're poisoning streams, but traditionally, creatures who live in rivers, like fish who live in rivers, actually do okay through most mass extinctions because they primarily live on dead plant and animal matter falling in. There's not a lot of primary production going on in rivers or streams. And so that's another reason that fungus generally do okay through mass extinctions too. Anyway, yeah, it's just standard stuff. People will make any excuses they can to stop resistance, which is really the point, is they'll come up with a bazillion excuses why they shouldn't protect the natural world.
Do you think it's a lot fear-based because they're afraid of losing their way of life that they know?
I think a lot of it is fear-based, and I think a lot of it is also based fundamentally on an unwillingness to acknowledge that non-humans are subjective beings. Because that's something that changes everything. As soon as you recognize that trees are sentient, that sow bugs are sentient, that bluebirds are sentient, then
even plants are to a certain extent. I mean, we're all.
Yeah, I don't think plants are sentient to a certain extent. I think they're just sentient. And same with fungi. And as soon as you recognize that, then
we seem less important. And people don't want to believe that they're less important than the other beings on this planet, I think.
And then there's also, I think a lot of it is also just fear. I mean, I know myself that I have been in circumstances in my life where I have had the opportunity to defend someone, either rhetorically or physically. And there are times when I have succeeded in doing this, and there are times when I have failed in doing this because of cowardice. And I think that the best one can hope for is that one learns from those times when one is a coward and becomes no longer a coward. Tecumseh, there's a story that when Tecumseh was 12 at the first battle he fought in, he ran away and was terrified. And basically his big brother said, okay, you get one. We all do that the first time. And then after that, it's time to grow up.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, let's get to some questions. Ian Savage, can you ask Derrick if he knows anything about the high number of grizzlies in Montana last year? If memory serves me correct, it was way high death counts. Thank you for this. Very much appreciated. Thank you, Ian.
So is he saying there's a high number of deaths or a high number of grizzlies?
I'm not entirely clear. He says was way high death counts.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, this is something that everybody mark this on your calendar, because you're going to hear a male say, I have no idea, and not just bullshit and answer. So I don't know. I have heard something about fairly high levels of killings. Well, what I do know is that they were seriously considering delisting them. I don't believe they succeeded, but they were arguing for delisting them. And I know that they're recently.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they kill them for all sorts of incredibly bad excuses, like killing chickens.
And they're doing the same thing here with coyotes and cougars, mountain lions here.
That's actually happening in this town. They just killed a male, and they've got tags out on a female and her cubs. Again, chickens in a semi-rural area.
That's just so sad. So Jeffrey says, what specific steps need to be made to bring down civilization, as you say? So Jeffrey Pearson, another one of your fans and one of my supporters too.
Well,
Thank you, Jeffrey.
I think that the first step is to, as always, to recognize that the natural world is more important than the economic system. And then after that is to find out, what your specific gifts are. And there are so many parts of it that, there are, we talk about in Deep Green Resistance, we talk about decisive attacks on infrastructure as being an important part of it. But that's only one part. And I think, and we can talk about that. Another part that part of the reason I'm resisting that a little bit, resisting talking too much about it, is because I'm sometimes known as the violence guy because I talk about fighting back, and that's only one little part of it. There's also a bunch of other things. And one thing I want to emphasize, I've gotten a bunch of interviews about people have been asking me about the current pandemic, and one of the questions they asked me is, what lessons do I think people should learn from it? And one of the lessons I think people should learn from it is to relocalize, especially food systems. And
yes, that's what I've been saying so much. Yes, yes.
Whether or not we bring down civilization right away, it's going to come down. And I think we need to relocalize food systems because it's just stupid to. I was looking at this last night for some odd reason. Last night, I was looking at imports to Denmark from China, and Denmark imports a fair amount of food from China, and that's just crazy. I mean, forget the fact that it's China. It's crazy to import food from around the world.
Altogether, it is. Yeah.
For one thing, it makes you reliant on the entire system.
A fragile system, I might add.
System, and an exploitative system, a system that's not sustainable when you can certainly have food right outside your door. So I think that there are a bunch of things people need to do. They need to protect wild places. They need to relocalize food systems. They need to...
And all systems, not just food. Like anything we live off of needs to be local.
Completely agree. And then we need to restore wild places. And we also need to stop the primary damage, which means we need to stop the entire economy. And doing that, I mean, the actual steps toward bringing it down, I think I think what we really need to do is to follow the lead of the natural world. And when the natural world gives us opportunities by weakening the system itself, then we need to follow up by giving the system additional pushes. And one of the ways to, I was talking with a friend the other day about how do we bring down the system? And an image that a friend of mine gave me 30 years ago was that you take a demolition crew in a city and they have to take down a building, and what they do is they try to put the charges in such a place that the building collapses in on itself and takes out as little of the surrounding area as possible. And civilization is going to collapse, and we need to attempt to place the charges such that it collapses in on itself as much as possible, and there is as little harm to the rest of the world, which is human and non-human.
I love that metaphor. I do. That's perfect. I love it. Okay. I'm Sweet Leaf again. How do we change the patterns of thinking to understand, get to a better way, let go of dependence on product and service, how to create different thinking, culture to avoid the free fall we are in?
I think first off, it takes a lot of time. And I remember reading somewhere that it takes people 10 years to change their mind. And the guy who was arguing that had been strongly anti-choice. And then 10 years later, he found himself with no discernible transition arguing strongly pro-choice. And he didn't know where exactly it came. And so this is one reason I don't really argue with people very much, is that you plant seeds, and then, I mean, I can't tell you how many times this has happened. That somebody will say something to me, and I'll go, no, that can't be, that's not right. And then about a year later, I say to that same person, hey, I had this great idea. And then I spout the same thing back to them that they said to me a year ago. And so I think the way we change our minds, our ways of thinking, is by having a seed dropped into our heads, and then we ruminate on it, and we come up with this great idea, and then we forget this great idea, and then we come up with an idea that's the other way around, and then eventually we're able to metabolize it and it becomes our own. And a great example of that is when I first read John Livingston's work, and then I interviewed him. One of the things that he introduced me to was the notion of evolution being based primarily on cooperation and not competition. And when I first read it, I thought he was crazy. That makes no sense. I mean, we all know.
It makes all the sense in the world once you think about it. But go ahead. Sorry.
Well, exactly. But for the first year or so, it's like, God, he's kind of getting old. It doesn't make any sense. But then it was a couple, 3 years later where I could no longer conceptualize how anybody could believe that evolution is based solely on competition. A great example of that, did I tell the story about if there's twin bears, a lot of times they'll have different personalities? Have I told that story here?
No, tell me that one. That's one I haven't heard, and I've heard of most of your stories. So happy to hear a new one.
So
awesome.
I've noticed a lot of times that if bears will have twins, that they might be very different personalities. One's very aggressive and one's very timid. And I see it, timid bears all the time. And timid bears, it makes no sense from a sort of Richard Dawkins selfish gene perspective, because frankly, the aggressive bears will steal their food. The aggressive will chase their sibling away. They end up not getting the good end of so much. And so I was wondering, how can this work as a survival tool? Why would there be one who's really timid? And part of it is, I've seen this, that the aggressive one can climb way out on the ends of tree limbs, and might fall and die. The aggressive one will be more likely to eat food that is not good for it. The aggressive one will be more likely to stray a little bit away from mom and could get grabbed by somebody. And in this neighborhood, there was one time there was this incredibly, you could either say rambunctious or you could say aggressive baby bear. It used to climb up on the roof and look down through the skylights. And that baby bear ended up getting shot by one of the neighbors because it went on the porch. And the timid bear of those two survived. So my point is that there are circumstances in which you really want for a baby bear to be aggressive, and there are circumstances in which it's in the baby bear's best survival interest to be very timid.
That makes a lot of sense to me. It does. With horses, I'm a horse person. There's something called the passive leader. That's a horse that it's not aggressive, but she kind of acts with the leader. She's able to get in with the leader, and actually she or he, it could be a he too, but mostly it's a she. Usually it's a she. But get in the way of trouble. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, because unless you've been with horses and really lived in their herd mentality, it's just amazing. The cooperation that happens there is unbelievable, mind-blowing. And it makes sense because they'll protect the weak, but I don't know, teach them in a way.
Part of the problem is the whole notion of everything being based on strict competition is that it devalues community and goes against all the evidence we know of plants or animals helping others of their species or another species to survive. When I was writing Myth of Human Supremacy, there was a line I came across that just made me laugh. It's, plants will communicate through pheromones, through chemicals. And if one plant is being chewed on by a caterpillar, it will communicate to other plants, hey, these caterpillars are here. We need to change the chemical composition of our leaves to make it so it doesn't taste as good to those caterpillars. and uh, some scientists who are studying this, they seem baffled, and they said, why would they help? Why would these plants help other plants, help their competitors to defend themselves against caterpillars? Why would they spend that energy? And it's like,
that helps them all. That's why.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
First off, it's, if you and I are both in a room and one of us smells smoke, I'm going to say, hey, there's a fire, so we can both run out. I'm not going to like tie you down so that you die in the fire. I mean,
That's stupid.
Neighbors and friends. It's like they use the word competitors instead of neighbors and friends and community members. And don't they? These plants understand something that the scientists don't, which is that a forest does not consist of one species of tree only, and only one specific tree. It consists of all of those other community members, which doesn't alter the fact that if you have anyway. So yeah, so the way we change our way of thinking is that we hear a new idea, and then we ruminate on it for a year, for 2 years. It kind of reminds me of this line that was said. Somebody said this to me, that he was at a concert and he went up and talked after the show, he went up and talked to whoever the famous guitarist was who'd been at the show, and said, I would love to learn guitar from you. And the guy said, I can teach you everything I know in 5 minutes, and then you have to go home and practice for 15 years. And it's really the same thing. Mm-hmm. The way you come up with new ideas or the way you change your way of thinking is, you just get some idea dropped in. It doesn't matter if it's dropped in by me or by a tree or by your friend or your kid or your parent. Somehow you encounter some new idea, and then you just ruminate on it for 10 years.
I think it takes humans that long to understand nature, when it should be inherent in if we were raised in it.
No, I think we still, I talked to Vine Deloria about this, and this is, okay, so you don't have to answer this question, and you feel free not to answer this question at all. How old are you?
I am 49.
Okay, so you are nearing the end of your reproductive life.
I am at the end I've ended my reproductive life.
Sure. I'm 59, and I'm learning more and more every day that nature doesn't really care that much about your body after you. Like, once we reach a certain age, it's like, nah, your vision's going to start going.
Your muscles are going to start deteriorating no matter how much you work out. And
exactly. But from a strictly sort of passing on your gene perspective, we may as well, from that perspective, we may as well just die at 35 or whatever. But that's not how we work. Humans are social creatures, and we have different roles at different ages. And one of the purposes of old people is to, and I miss my mom every day in this way, is to pass on the wisdom we've gained through all this time. And what is wisdom but really just a recognition of patterns? And I talked to Vine Deloria about this many, many years ago, a couple decades ago. And he said, that he had this great line about how with old age comes the leisure, because you're too old to go hunting anymore. You're too old to go gathering. With old age comes the leisure to be able to reflect upon and to perceive the patterns of nature
and pass it on to the next generation.
And well, you can pass on your perceptions, which they won't understand because they're still 30. But you'll be planting the seeds, so by the time they're 50, they may start to get it.
Right.
So that's, they've seen this with, oh gosh, I remember reading several years ago about how elephants, there was this really bad drought, and there were some elephants, the ones who were the oldest were the ones who remembered some different sources of water that they hadn't seen for 40 years. And so it was those old elephants who were able to tell the younger elephants where they go to survive.
Mm-hmm.
My point is that I don't remember why we were talking about this, but
I don't either. Doesn't matter. Go with it.
That's another part of cooperation among our species, is that the old people still have a role. We still are supposed to fulfill a function. And I hate the fact that I just said old people, we.
I know, we do. I'm up there too.
They, God damn it.
Damn it, those old people. Not us old people. Dang it, we're not old yet. I won't accept it. I still feel like I'm in my 20s. I'll never accept old age.
Well, there's a great line from the movie The Ruling Class, said by one old person to another, which is, inside you're still 17, but your feet go flop, flop, flop.
That's awesome. Oh my God. I had some great questions or comments anyway. One was the meek shall inherit the earth ? When we were talking about cooperation. And I think that's kind of true. Sort of.
I would just amend that a little bit. The meek shall inherit what's left of the earth.
What's left of whatever's left. And, it's going to be the microorganisms that survive.
I was going to say that. It's going to be the bacteria.
Yeah.
Bacteria, who are the most important creatures on the planet by far. They are the ones who keep everything going.
The fungi. Don't forget the fungi. Fungi will maybe survive, you think? I mean, one of the oldest organisms, I think.
I honestly think that if civilization were to come down pretty quick, pretty soon, I think a lot of the earth could recover okay. If it happens pretty quick. If it happens very much longer, I don't think salmon, for example, would be able to survive another 20 years of this culture. But I think if this culture completely collapsed tomorrow, which I don't know exactly what that looks like, but if it did completely collapse tomorrow, I think salmon could probably come back.
You think? I mean, I don't know, but it'd have to happen tomorrow. But I'm not looking I'm not seeing anything making me think this is going to stop. Not living where I'm at because.
No, I'm not seeing anything that suggests it's going to all come down tomorrow. I'm just saying it.
I was very hopeful for the coronavirus to take down civilization, actually. I was very hopeful, but.
I don't. See, here's the thing. And some people are going to be here in a minute, so I'm going to have to go pretty quick.
Yeah, so will we. I'm looking for more questions for you, but
I want to go ahead. That's fine.
No, you're good. I'm not seeing anything directed specifically. They're talking amongst themselves at the moment. So. Okay. Oh, wait, there is one question, but great. Go ahead first.
No. Question.
Rich Diana. Oh my God, it skipped. Damn it. I hate it when it happens. I think she was asking something about when will total chaos happen? When do you think will total chaos? It skipped. I didn't see her exact question.
I think the total chaos is already here for many non-humans. And
oh, yeah.
It's here for poor humans. And the only reason that most of us don't see it is because we're behind a gated community with. So we should wind down because the dogs are going to be very loud now.
Okay, there's people coming. I got it. Well, thank you everybody for coming. I'm going to let Derrick go. I'm going to do my thing after he's gone. But thank you so much for coming, Derrick. And I very much look forward to. This was our 6th time to a 7th interview. I'm really hoping for that, and we'll talk more about your book that's hopefully going to be out really soon.
Yeah, I look forward to it. I always enjoy being on your program. It's great.
Thank you, Derrick. We will talk to you soon. And yeah, enjoy what's left, I guess. Say hi to the bears for me.
I will do that.
All right. And the dogs and the cats. All right. Have a good one. Bye, Derrick. Okay, guys. Well, that was Derrick. I so much enjoyed having Derrick on with me. Oh, my God. I always do. That was my 6th interview with him. I'm going to have to put him on a playlist because some people argue that I only did 3, but no, this was my 6th one. I'll put them on a playlist so you can find them easier. Thank you, Vegematic. Thank you. Osama's here. These plants are relics, leak continually. And in the case of Indian Point, 30 miles from downtown Manhattan, energy doesn't even have an accurate diagram of the planet's plumbing. Rich Diana says, hurry back, Derrick. I will have Derrick back again. He's one of my very favorite guests. I think he's the one I've had most on my show as a special interview. Vegematic, I'm so happy you made it. Philip Blair, thank you. I'm a sweet leaf. Welcome to the family. Officially, welcome to the family. We all have things that Warren, I'm glad you made it. And Sandy, love you so much. Pat's Batman fan. The cooling rod tanks will explode first. Lots of nice radioactive gas. Yummy. So many things can happen. My head is just in twists and whatever, but I know Oz has to get ready for another interview. That's why we kept it kind of short, and it was a good thing that it kind of worked out because Derrick had to keep it short because he had a thing going. Snork, Y2K, he isn't the bear scientist that crawls into bear dens and gives them cherries to distract them when he sticks thermometers in their butts. No, that's not him. No. We are compost. We are golden. Chris, if I die, the bear red, he'd look like Kevin of Black Bear News. Okay. Take a breath. Yeah, I need to take a breath. Lady Ella. Oh, no, someone new. Ella? Lady Ella? All humanity fears death. All strategies for anything are of no avail. We must accept death. Agree. Unfortunately, it's going to happen. But life is a death sentence. So I'm just enjoying every day I have. And I think we all should, and do a lot of gardening and stuff. And tonight I'll be back and we'll be talking to Brown, and hopefully Veg will be here. Right, Veg? Vegematic and Pat the Batman fan and Oz and Brom will be here, hopefully. Well, no, he will be here. Brom, talk political, like blowing up the political system. So, yeah, stay tuned tonight, 7:00 p.m. We'll be back. Same bat channel. Yeah, same place. Only with Bat the Batman fan. I gave up hope and it worked just fine. George Carlin, Pat's Batman fan, you're awesome. Val, oh yeah, of course Val will be here tonight. Of course. Meat plants are shutting down. I know, that's awesome. Thank you. I'm a sweet leaf. Welcome so much to the channel. You're one of my new favorite people. Knowing you'll continue to get DJ on is a big deal, and I can get a Derrick Jensen question list. That's a great time for your heart doing what you do. Thank you. I'm a sweet leaf. Rich Diana, thank you. Yeah, there's no hurry. I don't want to go down fast, but it is. All right, we're out. Have a good night, all. I love you all. Thanks for coming. And I'm just gonna add Lady Ella to the family before we go. Thanks, Sandy. I hope to see you tonight. If you can't make it, I understand. It's so late for you. I don't know how you can do it. Anyway, love you guys. Have a good night. We'll see you later tonight. Chris Foster, love you. Bye. Snork, everybody. While I'm waiting for us to put up the outro thingy. Thank you, Ian. Welcome to the family. Welcome. Cornholio. Bye.